What's up, rockers? Welcome to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Leave us your likes and comments. You can leave likes and comments on our Facebook page and also follow us on iTunes and Spotify. I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with my co-host Jason McMaster. And today we are joined by Adam Hamilton, who is a producer, record producer, who spent some time as a band member of LA Guns. He once lived with CC DeVille, which I'm sure was just crazy. And he's done some really cool stuff as a producer. He's worked with some musicians as well as actors who've cut records, not the least of which was William Shatner from Star Trek fame. So we'll get into all that and we'll find out what it was like working with all those folks. And here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Adam Hamilton, our special guest today on the Talk Louder podcast.
Yes.
Adam,
thank you.
Thank you for joining us, man. It's great to see you.
It's really good to see you guys too, man. It's been far too long, and I appreciate you asking me to come on and chat with you. And anytime to come and see you guys and chat rock and roll, I'm in, you know?
Absolutely, man. Thank you for that. And man, your hair looks fantastic still. I don't know.
Dude.
This guy might have some of the best hair in rock and roll. When I first met Adam, he was playing bass in LA Guns, and he had this sort of hedgehog thing that was it was real spiky, but then it was like leopard print, you know, it was black and yellow, and it just looked super cool. And now that you're kind of gone back, you sort of reverted back to a little more
soccer dad look.
Hey, if that's soccer dad, then count me in. I bet you're the coolest looking soccer dad in the field, man.
It's so funny, man. You live out here, and you know, I walk around. Yeah, I used to think I looked rock and roll. Now it's just like, man, I look like a soccer dad compared to the edginess of some people. It's hysterical. But thank you, man. All those compliments go back to you too, man. You got the serious rock and roll style.
Thanks, man. So we met, you and I met when you were actually playing bass in LA Guns. And I want to say that was about 2005 or
maybe so. San Antonio.
Yeah. The first time we met was in San Antonio. Yeah. And right. Our buddy, Patrick Kennison, introduced me to you guys, and you guys were just so cool. I mean, you especially just kind of made me feel welcome, took me on the bus, sat me down, introduced me to the guys. And I'd never met you before. And I was just like, this guy's great, man. And we exchanged contact information, and we've been in touch ever since. And it's been great watching your career and some of the things that you're doing now and things you've done in the past. And we'll touch on all that here in just a bit.
I appreciate it. Well, you know, Patrick's family. And when Patrick says, hey, these guys are family, then, you know, that circle just comes together. You know how it is.
Yeah. And Jason and Patrick go way back as well.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So, man, there's so much to talk about with you. I'm not sure where to start, but why don't we start in the present, and maybe we'll work backwards. So if I understand correctly, you're currently doing something with Elliot Easton from the Cars. Is that right?
Yeah. I'm working on a few different things, but Elliot, I produced a record a few years ago, one of the William Shatner records we did, and Elliot and I have a lot of mutual friends, and he came in and was a guest on that. So we realized that he lives like 10 minutes from me. So whenever he needs to do any kind of session or anything, he just calls me and pops over here, and we do it here. So we were working on a Leslie West tribute record that he's playing on.
Oh, that's fucking cool.
Yeah, man. So it's just so cool, you know. And plus we have a lot of mutual friends, so we're just, you know, it's just a good hang. It's just
He's a monster player.
Oh man, yeah.
Unbelievable what that guy can do on a guitar.
Yeah, you know, I was telling him, I said, the best compliment I think I can give you, it's just because of what I like as a guitar player, is like he writes like melodies that are hooks in the song, and my wife will walk around when we're like singing and doing to entertain my kid or something, and we'll be singing a car song and the solo comes up, and she'll start singing the solo. And I'm like, there you go, man. You know, even somebody who's not a musician, you know, it just gets, it's a hooky melody. So he's a sweetheart too. So
I was excited to see you working with him because I won't say I was a huge Cars fan as a kid, but they were one of those bands that was kind of on the periphery that I totally respected and admired.
Oh, yeah.
I could tell. I mean, I did like their songs. Don't get me wrong, but I didn't collect their albums or go to their concerts or anything.
I was the same way. Totally
But
the same way.
I always liked their look and their vibe, and to me, Elliot was always kind of a standout dude. You know, number one, he's left-handed, but he just always had this cool swagger about him with the
So very
sunglasses
much.
and everything.
He was like this new wave Buddy Holly lefty guy. He had
Yeah.
glasses.
Perfect example. Yeah.
He was. I mean, just as far as the look, and
Yeah.
and Dave's right. The lefty thing threw you off. There wasn't other than Hendrix, you know, who's probably
Yeah.
the most popular lefty.
Yeah.
But then you listen to like Nightlife solo. It just sounds like, I mean, it's like a banjo. Hey, write this
Yeah.
solo on a banjo and play it on an electric guitar.
Exactly.
Like.
A lot of his stuff was literally like old school chicken picking, you know. He just came from such a cool old school place that he just had his own thing, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for people listening, we should, you know, we've got the visual here on YouTube with your albums framed in the background and everything. But Adam is, you know, basically a record producer these days. And we're talking about some of his recent projects, Elliot Easton being one of them. And you mentioned William Shatner. And I mean, dude, I wasn't going to get into this till later, but since you brought him up, what are the odds of who gets to produce an album by William Shatner, a television icon?
And didn't Patrick Kennison play?
Yeah, man.
He's involved somehow.
Yeah, Patrick is just one of my go-to guys. You know, once he and I hooked up, I just am like, if I ever need some great harmonies on something or background vocals or a guitar part that I can't do, I just call Patrick up and, you know, 30 minutes later, he sends me the files or he comes over and we have a hang. And yeah, I pulled him in. He saved my ass because one of the songs we had to do was Bohemian Rhapsody. And I'm like, how am I going to do this? And I'm like, I'm going to call Patrick and I'm going to get him to come sing all the harmonies and it's going to be great. And it turned out fantastic. But he's like my secret weapon, man, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We've had the pleasure of knowing him for years and years and years from our old San Antonio days.
Yep, absolutely, man. Patrick's the best. Love him.
So your studio where you do all this work is in your home. Is that correct?
Yeah, we moved out of West Hollywood and kind of got out of LA about 12 years ago. And my wife was like, you know, aren't you kind of tired of living in the thick of it? Like we really don't do anything anymore. We're kind of like boring and I work and we go to dinner maybe and we're in bed by 8 and we got a little kid. She's like, don't you want to have a place where we can you can have your studio at home and we can have a pool and hang out? And so the minute you start doing that in LA, you're like, all right, you got to start moving out because prices in LA and California are ridiculous. But we kind of started looking in an area that we really liked, which, you know, and if I've got to go see a band at the Whiskey or something on the weekend, I can literally get on the 101 and I'm there in 15 minutes. So we're not that far, but we're far enough to where you can find parking and people are nice and you're not living on top of one another. And so I've got my studio here at our place.
You can be at an iconic venue in 15 minutes. You didn't move very far out.
I didn't. But that's also me getting in on the freeway at, you know, 10 o'clock at night and hauling ass and I can get there quick.
That's right.
But we moved far enough out where it's like, you know, we're in the suburbs, which is
I'm going to
nice.
throw a wrench. I'm going to throw a wrench in here. Where are you from originally?
I am originally from Shreveport, Louisiana. Okay. But then I migrated to Texas and actually lived a year in Austin and lived a year and a half in San Antonio. Didn't know Patrick or you guys back then.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When was that? When were you?
That was in the early 90s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that's how I got out to California. Where I knew that I was eventually going to hopefully end up out here. I was just kind of like a little overwhelmed with the thought of just up and moving to Hollywood. I didn't really know anybody. But I was playing in a bar in Austin on 6th Street, and that's where I met CeCe from Poison when they were in town on that Flesh and Blood tour.
Weird.
And I went up and hit him up and said, hey, man, I'm jamming upstairs. Come up and jam with us. And he was really nice, and he came up and sat in with us and invited me to the concert. And that was kind of my big break. He kind of said, hey, I'm getting ready to quit the band, and I want you to play in my solo band.
Wow.
And I'm going to bring you out to L.A. And about a year later, he did that once he finally quit the band. So Austin, 6th Street was kind of where it all started, you know?
That's weird. Right place, right time. You're on 6th Street of all god awful places. And are you in a cover band, or what do you?
Yeah, man.
Okay.
I literally moved down to, I moved to Austin because I knew a drummer in a funk band down there. And he literally got me a gig. And I was the white kid, and a white drummer in an all black funk band on 6th Street. And, you know, we played soul and funk and all this stuff. And I did that for a while, and the band kind of fizzled. And then I got in this other cover band, and I was just kind of trying to get my, you know, trying to meet people, get my foot in the door. I didn't really know that many people. And so it was just a cover band, you know, covering everything. I mean, just rock and roll and stuff. And that's the one that I was playing with, that Cece came in and saw us and sat in with us.
So Cece just randomly shows up at this club.
Yeah, he was in town. Poison was playing the Flesh and Blood tour in 91 or 92. They were still happening, and they had the top 10 record at the time, and they played the Frank Irwin Center on Friday.
Do you remember who was opening that show?
That's a good question. Maybe Slaughter or something.
It David Lee Roth?
No, it wasn't David Lee Roth. I think it was Slaughter, maybe. I didn't catch them, but I think that's who it was. Okay. Or wasn't the Bullet Boys? Maybe it was Winger or Slaughter. I'm not sure.
Slaughter sounds right.
Yeah, I think that was, but I don't think it was Warrant. I know they opened some of that tour.
Yeah,
but they played that.
Thing.
Yeah, they played that Frank Irwin Center. We went to see that show, and he pulled me on the bus after the show, and he goes, "I'm miserable. I want to start my own band, and I want it to be kind of different and weird and unique, and I want you to be my drummer." And I'm like, I just had that out of body experience, you know, that were like, I'm having my first real big break right now. This is like, I was like watching it happen. And now, like, you know, 30 years later, I look back and I'm like, yeah, that was like the big door that opened. And obviously you have many breaks that happen. Hopefully if you're in the right.
You met his people. You got to.
Yeah, I was able to get in the ring. You know what I mean? You know, when you get your first big deal, like, it's like all of a sudden you're like, okay, now I'm over the ropes. Okay, now what am I going to do with this? And how am I going to not fuck this up? You know,
for the record, I just want to blurt out, if it's not obvious to a lot of other people, because, you know, you got metalheads are not really Poison fans, but a lot of them are secretly
there's a
or
lot
not.
Of
It's strange, but I got to tell you something. If you listen to CC's guitar playing, he's better than he's letting you know.
Absolutely.
He's a better guitar player than you think he is, just by listening to randomly pick a Poison song. That's not really what he does.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, man.
I even know that. So
yeah, I saw a side of him while I was playing with him and living up at his house that I was like, you know, nobody knows in Poison what he can really do, because it's just a different scene. You know?
Yeah, I was going to ask you. So he shows up at your gig randomly. Yep. He invites you to LA to be his drummer, and then from what you've told me in the past, you end up living with him. And
I mean, the whole idea was like, he's got this giant mansion up at the top of the Hollywood Hills, the House of Horrors, he called it.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
Nothing in it, all white marble and glass, overlooking Burt Reynolds on your left, Madonna on your right, what's her name? Diana Ross right here.
Wow.
And you literally are like, okay, I got my first big break and I'm just going straight to the top of the hill. So it was pretty funny, man. But it was also a good lesson in timing is everything. Even though I got this great break, and the timing is everything in getting that break, the timing of his wanting to go solo and put a band together was terrible. Because literally we tried our best. We did photo shoots for every rock magazine. You know, he did tons of press. We tried to write a lot of songs, but there was too much partying going on, which was inhibiting any real good work being done. Yeah. We were living at his house with him. So it was literally like you sleep all day, stay up all night jamming and doing photo shoots and playing Rockstar. And then you wake up and you're like, okay, all we're doing is a lot of partying. This is a great scene to do it in. And, you know, we're in a bunch of magazines, but we're not able to get a deal. So, you know, what's wrong with this picture? After 3 months, I was kind of like going, the novelty of all this and the excitement is kind of starting to wear thin. I'm starting to feel a little out of sorts from all the partying and a completely backward schedule. And he was going down a dark road with all of his partying, because he was going a lot harder than I was. And I was trying to keep some sense of reality and normalcy, and to keep up with him all night, to play drums for 8 hours, you know.
You had just quit your life.
Yeah.
You had a life, and you were living, and you were surviving. And I mean, even if it be like, you know, okay, I'm on 6th Street, you know, but then you're not on 6th Street. And so that's a little bit of a lesson within its own little thing. That
and I think also I was aware enough to pay attention, and I was clear-headed enough to pay attention to the signs around me and what was happening. And I remember one day, it's this one defining moment where we're watching MTV, and all of a sudden Nirvana comes on, and, you know, Dave Grohl is just going crazy. And we were both like, whoa, look at this guy play drums. This is crazy. What is this? And I just had this aha moment where I thought, wait a second, I'm watching the old guard, you know, the chapter close on that. And the new guard is showing up. And literally, you know, looking back in retrospect with hindsight 2020, that's exactly what was happening. And that's why we couldn't get a deal, because people were getting ready they were signing everything and anything that's remotely sounded like grunge, and grunge was coming in, and our timing was terrible, you know?
Yeah.
And there you go. There's the timing in life coming into play once again.
Is this band Samantha 7, or is this something?
Nope. This was like a year or two prior to that. This was called the CC DeVille Experiment.
Okay. All right.
He had a bunch of different lineups. He had one with James Kotak, Needle Park. He had one with Kelly Hansen was in that. He also had one with Carmine Appice and Jimmy Bain and that, you know, so he had all these little projects that he was trying to do, and it wouldn't really work. And he put another one together, and, you know, and I think Samantha 7 was the one that John Kalodner finally said, hey, let's do this right. Let's sign you and really let you make a record, you know, but, you know, CeCe's not a lead singer, you know, and I think the project might've had a little bit more of a shot with somebody singing, but you know, once again, timing is everything. So, you know.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you, because one of the most memorable scenes for me in the, I guess it's the Poison Behind the Music, where CeCe says something he talks about his house. He goes, it started off as the house, and then the house of horrors, and then it ended up as the house of horrors.
It was, man. It was. It started out a lot of fun, and it got real dark, man. It got real dark. But there were some fun nights. I mean, I got to meet all these guys that I always loved in bands. The Motley Crue guys and the Bullet Boys and Sam Kinison, and they would all come up and party and hang out, and Ron Jeremy back in the day. And we would just, it would be a party every night. And you were just like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy.
Let's talk about CeCe's accent and like crazy, because he's a character. He could have been in a movie as himself, or like some weird James Cagney kind of a vibe, a gangster guy. Yeah. I guess it's not a road that he sort of, you know, he doesn't claim that he wants to act or something, but I feel like he could have done like voiceover shit. Just
he sure could have.
Being his own character. It's fucking great. Where is he originally from?
They're from, his family's from New York.
He's from New York. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I knew that, you know, the rest of his gang, or most of, was Pennsylvania. Just
they were all from Pennsylvania. Yep. He was the odd guy out. He was from New York.
All right.
So you're living in the house of horrors.
Yeah.
And then you make a break, but you're still in LA. So
no, I actually decided to come back to Louisiana for a bit and just kind of regroup and get my head on straight. And I moved my stuff back there, stayed for about a year, and then I got on the phone with Jerry Miller, at Metal Edge, and I said, hey, I'm thinking about coming back and living permanently. Do you know of anybody looking for a drummer? And she said, I do. I just got off the phone with a band called Shake the Faith, Dave Aragon and Kenny Queens and all, and Tommy Thayer.
Yeah.
And she said, yeah, they're kind of regrouping. They're looking for a new drummer. They changed the name to Number 9, and they're looking, and you'd be great for it. So I was like, well, how about that? There you go. There's good timing. So I literally called the guys up and said, hey, I'm going to move out here and I'd love to come audition. And they say, well, listen, if you move out here, you know, and you're halfway cool, you'll be the drummer, because we're tired of looking for somebody. And Jerry says, you're great. And we see pictures of it and you'll work. It'll be great. So I literally kind of had a gig waiting on me. So that made it a little easier, I literally had a buddy who was an actor. He's like, I got a guest house. You can stay out there till you get your feet on the ground. And you can come out and do the audition. And I literally came out, did the audition over at Mates, got the gig. And I was like, all right, I'm off and running. Perfect. This is fantastic. So it seemed like everything kind of happened really, really fast. I mean, I met Matt Sorum over at Mates probably that same week that I was there with the Shake the Faith number 9 guys. I met the Motley guys rehearsing with John Corabi over there. And I just met all these really great connections from guys that I respected in bands. And they all ended up being very helpful to me, in my career in one way or another. So it was cool, man. It's just like anything, when you got right place, right time. And if you position yourself and you're in the right place, that's when things can happen if you, are prepared for it.
It's a lot of little things.
Oh, millions of them. It's like, it seems, I remember hearing Joe Walsh say, life seems like this crazy bunch of just million things all crashing into one another and all this chaos and everything. And then you look back later in your life and it looks like a finely crafted novel, how all these little things came together and led you to where you are now,
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So how did you, I met you as the bass player in LA Guns. So take us from Shake the Faith to LA Guns. And if there's anything in between that I'm skipping over, please feel free to fill in the blank. Yeah,
man. After the Shake the Faith thing turned into number 9, we really couldn't seem to get a substantial deal going. I decided I've got to look for another gig. And I met Blues Saraceno. And Blues was actually in Poison now. So now I'm playing with the second Poison guitar player. I started a little side band with Blues. And, we knocked around for about 6 months trying to get something going, but it didn't really happen. And he had to go on the road with Poison down in South America. So he left. I had a buddy who got me an audition with a band that was signed to Warner Brothers, and they were called God's Child. And I got the gig with those guys, went on tour with those guys. Made a couple of records and changed the band name to Joe 90 on our second record. And then I met a guy. He was this amazing producer, engineer, bass player, and his name was Muddy. And Muddy happened to be in LA Guns. And so Muddy brought me in to play drums on this crazy band's album called the Brian Jonestown Massacre that he was producing. So I became friends with Muddy, and he would bring me into other sessions and have me play on records. And finally, Muddy said, I've kind of did my time in LA Guns. I'm getting ready to go play with Gilby Clarke and Slim Jim from the Stray Cats. Would you want to play bass in LA Guns? I know you're a drummer, but I also know you enjoy playing bass. And I was kind of at a point in time where I was like, I was burnt out on the drums and I just needed something to do. I wanted to do something different. And I loved LA Guns. He said, you're going to love Tracy and Phil. They're awesome. You're going to have a blast. And so I literally said, yeah, that sounds a lot of fun. Hook me up with the audition. And so he hooked me up with the audition, and I went down and played with him and got the gig. And that was, man, I think I played with him for about 8 or 9 years as the bass player. And I joined on the Man in the Moon record on that tour.
Right.
Buddy had made the record with him.
Yeah.
So I went out and did that tour. And on that tour, we started writing together. And then we made a record after that tour, which was the Waking the Dead record.
Yep.
We literally wrote every day on the bus and at sound checks, and literally wrote the whole record, while we were out there. Just because, you have so much time on the road, you're just bored 23 hours out of the day. So we made good use of that time and got creative and productive. And Tracy had a little recorder, and we would do demos on that. And then stayed with those guys for almost 10 years. Yeah, about 8 or 9 years, maybe, I think. And we made some good records. And Tracy had started talking. And after we did that tour, once that whole thing had kind of wound down, that was probably about maybe the time I met you, Dave. Tracy had started talking with Nikki Sixx, and he and Nikki had been talking about the idea of doing like a side band. And so they decided they wanted to try to make a record, and they were going to do the Brides project, the Brides of Destruction.
Yeah.
And so initially I was kind of helping them put that together. I recorded the demos for us to try to find them a singer. And so that's when I found the guy that was cutting my hair. His name was London. And I said, I think you might be a good candidate for them because you have this look they're looking for. So we did a demo and got him to come sing on it. And Nikki said, yeah, I love it. It'll be great. So initially the Brides was going to be a side project, and then Nikki was going to go do the Motley Crue reunion, and Tracy was going to come back to LA Guns. So it was all supposed to be just like, hey, let's do something fun, keep us fired up and creative. But that kind of splintered the LA Guns family for a while there, and created all sorts of drama. But I guess that's another story for another day. But yeah, man, it was one of the greatest decisions I ever made. I love those guys, their family. I still work with Tracy and Phil today. I played drums on their new record and got to mix it as well. That's coming out in November. Just mixed their live record that's coming out in July, live from Vegas. And I actually wrote a song with them on this new record too. So, all these years later, we're still doing work together, which is beautiful,
Yeah. I want to go on record as saying I think Waking the Dead is one of the best albums in the LA Guns catalog.
Thanks, man.
From my opinion.
Thanks, man.
I love that record, and it came at a time when, a lot of people kind of maybe had written the band off. It was a
absolutely
past their heyday or whatever, but that record came out, and I was like, oh my God, this is really strong, man. This stands up nicely to anything they're known for.
That's cool.
And so anyone listening that kind of gave up on LA Guns, after the Cocked and Loaded record or Hollywood Vampires, if you're into those records, you owe yourself a favor, and you need to pick up Waking the Dead.
Why you got to talk about me? I'm sitting right here, dude.
Well, that also has a lot to do with Andy Johns, man. Yes. That was the first record we got to make with him.
Legendary.
And you literally are going, we're about to start making a record with the guy who recorded Led Zeppelin and the Stones. And we were just, it was like, talk about a dream come true, man. I just literally got to sit down and say, tell me about John Bonham, tell me everything. I was literally a sponge, just taking notes on everything. And Andy was an amazing guy. He was so musical. He was such a musician himself. He could say, no, try this bass part, da 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 da. And every time he would make a suggestion, you try it and it would be great.
Yeah.
A brilliant guy, man.
So I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm just going to. I've actually heard the new LA Guns record, and it's good, man.
It is. It really is, man.
You play drums on the whole thing, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And now, which of the songs did you write or co-write, or?
I think it's going to be the first single. It's called "If It's Over Now."
I love that song, man.
Yeah, man. Well, they sent me a demo of "Let You Down" before we tracked that song.
Great song.
And I had a moment where I just was like, wow, I was getting chills listening to the demo, and I said, not only is this one of the best things LA Guns ever wrote, this is one still to this day, after a couple of years of having put it, behind us, it's one of my favorite songs. I still put it on and I get chills, man. It's so amazing that I wished I had written on that song, but I was blessed to be able to play drums on it and mix it. But yeah, man, they've hit a whole new chapter. And
they really have, man. It's insane. Cause when they came back, when Tracy and Phil decided to reunite and put out the Missing Piece record.
Yeah.
I, as a fan, I had high hopes, and I was kind of like rooting for them. And I was like, I hope this comes out, and it's great and it knocks people out and everything. I listened to that record. We were just talking on a previous episode to David Roach from Junkyard.
Yep.
And Junkyard and LA Guns both put out comeback records, if you will, in 2017. And those two records got more spins in my house than probably any other records of the past 5 years. Yeah. I listened to that record inside out. And then, less than 2 years later, The Devil You Know follows it.
Yep.
And now you've got a third album with this incarnation of the band. A third album is in the can, just waiting to be released.
Checkered Past.
And Checkered Past. And I don't know how much I'm allowed to talk about.
Yeah, you can say it. You can say it.
Yeah, it's been reported and published that the name album is called Checkered Past. Comes out in November. But and then the song you just mentioned, Let You Down, was sort of released as a teaser probably about a year ago.
Yep.
And I remember, listening to it and thinking, wow, it's kind of an unusual song for LA Guns in the
Very
respect
much.
it's very kind of moody and atmospheric. It's not one of their slam bang, kick down the door, rock and roll.
Not at all. I told them, I said, I think you guys wrote, the Ballad of Jane is what you're most famous for. That's kind of like your Angie. I said, but you guys wrote your dream on with this song, man. It's like, that's what it does to me. It makes me feel something like that song does.
So me just being a fly on the wall here a little bit. I'm enjoying you guys sort of like rattle off all of this, like, production, songwriting, and growth of a band that's been around for decades.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That I toot my horn here, shameless plug, that I've toured with, but they've gone through they've morphed into and splintered and been to court over the name and all of such craziness, which sounds pretty fucking normal when you in retrospect, when you think about other bands. I mean, that's kind of like the normal, thing. But to hear you guys sort of like engage about where Tracy and Phil are sort of this, you can't have pudding without sugar, it doesn't, it's going to taste like shit if you don't have the sugar with the right ingredient.
Man, those magic combinations of people work together,
Where this, my point was only trying to be like just hearing you guys talk about these other moments, Ballad of Jane, Rip and Tear. Then I'm kind of lost in LA Guns land after that, because I'm still listening to my Girl album. So the thing is, and that's fine, right? Okay, so I love it that these guys are able to still sort of like put their hands into the water and come up with fish, right? That mean that you guys are as players and writers and fans, and even me, who's just late to the party, can go, what are you guys talking about? That's awesome. This is kind of where I wanted to speak up and go, if you're saying all of these things that make me want to listen to that.
Well, that's kind of my point, is like I said it earlier, and I say this about a lot of bands that I grew up with. I have a lot of high school friends. We were all Judas Priest fans. We were all Iron Maiden fans. We were all Saxon fans, LA Guns fans, and for the most part, a lot of them outgrew rock and roll or whatever.
Hold the phone for a second. So when that ever happens, guys, they were never into it. They were into it because a girl they liked it, or they didn't have any friends and they needed some friends, so they put on a Led Zeppelin t-shirt and went to school. And then all of a sudden they had friends. But when they realized, wow, I don't need to like rock and roll to have friends.
Or to have a life or a family or whatever.
Right. So they were just there to wear the costumes so they could get through high school. They weren't really true headbangers. They weren't really true rockers. I used to like rock and roll. Whenever you hear that, think of what I'm saying right now.
Yeah.
It's a red flag.
That's right. That's
exactly.
Duly noted.
But so here's my point, and so I tell these people all the time, because I know they know the band names or whatever. But I'm like, if you stopped listening to Saxon, if you stopped listening to Saxon and Judas Priest just put out amazing records. The last Rat record was really, I liked it as maybe even better than Out of the Cellar. I don't think anybody heard it. It was a great record. And LA Guns is doing that quality of work at this point in their career, and I think that's what I'm trying to say.
So that new Rat record, just for fun,
is 20 years old, 15 years old.
It came
like the last one.
I think that's why I was very careful to say the last one, not
the last one. Exactly.
So so you're in the LA Guns family, and then you recently, and I want to get to some of your production work here in just a minute, but I want to spend just a couple more minutes with you as a musician, a working musician. You you were kind of behind the scenes, went into the production field for a while, and then on a leg of an LA Guns tour recently, when the second guitar slot continued to churn as it does, you went back out on the road and played second guitar with them.
Yeah.
And so how was it all those years later? And you're a married man with a daughter, and you're a family guy, and you're kind of grounded and rooted in your work being at home now.
Yeah.
What was it like for you to sort of to kind of leave everything and go live out of a suitcase and be on stage and play the clubs? And
it was so much fun, because I haven't done it in so long that was great to get to revisit it with those guys. Playing all that music is just a lot of fun. And we did a great run through the States, and then I got to go to Europe with them for 3 weeks. And they're because of the Missing Piece album, where they're at now, they're able to play bigger, better places. And so it was a pleasure every night. You were playing really cool venues, and all the shows were sold out, and it was a lot of fun. It's like, finally, all those years that we slogged it through the trench, just trying to keep the band, some semblance of the band together, to keep the name alive without doing it too much damage. And it's like, finally, those guys are they're finally getting their just due, and it's great.
So what do you think it is? As somebody who spends time with Phil and Tracy and has been on the bus and in the band and all that stuff. All these years later now, we're looking at a third studio album coming out since the reunion. What is it about their two personalities that has sort of simmered down and allowed this to sort of blossom at this late stage? Because I could see them getting together and doing one album, and then all the old demons would come back and they'd end up in an argument and a fight, and that would be the last of that. But we're on 3 records now.
Yeah.
And the tours, I guess, are going well. So as an insider, what is it about the personalities that has sort of chilled out and made this possible?
Age and experience. That's it. Older, wiser, a little more compassionate to each other, a little more understanding of one another, and giving each other space too. They just know how to they respect one another, and they know how to communicate better now. So it's just like an old married couple who went to therapy, and you just learn how to do it now, and it's just fun. And it's like, yeah, man, you hang in the front of the bus, and we hang in the back of the bus, or whatever, giving each other space. It's just learning how to do it with some age and experience, and then going, hey, this is actually fun. And look what's happening. Our album's charting at Billboard, and we're having great we get to go play sellout shows in Paris and in England. And it's like, we're doing it we've taken it up a notch. Who knew, that was possible? Well, there you go.
I want to jump in here as Garth. Yep. I am the Garth to Dave Wayne, and just say, I don't give a fuck that it's 30 something years later.
Yeah.
I don't either.
That you guys, I can say, but that Phil and Tracy are able to say the things that you are putting on the table, and these accolades, accomplishments, these proud moments. They didn't necessarily have to go totally broke to find the pot of gold.
The missing piece.
Yeah. They didn't have to go broke to do it. They just had to learn a little bit from things that they might have done and said in the past.
Yeah, man. I try to continually being a student of life, and those guys kind of got with that same thing. Let's just keep learning. Let's keep learning how to be better at what we do. Let's learn how to be maybe better people. Let's learn how to be better together, getting along. It's just, man, that's the beauty of getting older, man, is we get wisdom with that. And if you just can utilize that wisdom, man, it's just like, that's everything.
I also feel like they probably had to make a lot of hard decisions that they didn't really want to make, but they had to make in order to find their own happiness.
Absolutely.
Which not a lot of bands are willing to do. I'm saying like maybe the like Dave said a second ago, the guitar player gets a Spinal Tap wheel,
Yeah.
a lot of bands won't do that. They'll keep the same guys in the band, whether it's the best thing for the band or not. And there's something to be said for that, because it's when you're in a band, it's family. But I feel like there's a lot of bands that will have to make those changes for health reasons.
Yeah, man. You got to get, toxic people do not belong with a lot of people who are all working and pulling together and happy and healthy and trying to make something work. It's just it becomes a disease that takes over the whole thing and sinks the ship. So
and I'm not pinpointing any former member of LA Guns or current member of whichever LA Guns you like to talk about, but the point that I'm making is real. And I feel like we've talked a little bit about this little nugget on Talk Louder podcast before with Dave will remind me, it was an episode about, if there's only one member left, do you support that band, or do you go where there's more members, or do you just go with the one that has the original singer, or do you go see a band that has no members in, might as well be called a tribute band. We talked about this on the show. And,
absolutely.
I'm not trying to relive that episode. I'm just saying the things that we're talking about here, the things that you're talking about older, wiser, whatever, is the medicine could be the medicine. You don't know to the success of where you are now with the people that you are working with now, and not necessarily it be about that fan who's nerding out on, well, I'm only going to go see them if they have the original singer, whatever it is. I should point at myself a little bit, because I'm just a fan, I'm not committing any crimes or anything like that. But these things that we're sort of going around the room with now via your Dave's question and your answers are really kind of, this enlightenment is only the only thing that's going to set anybody free. And then let's get back in and help you write the song you need to write that day.
There you go.
Yeah. So whatever the chemistry is, it's obviously working, and I'm glad to see that it wasn't just a short-lived flash in the pan. And I've just really been excited about anytime I hear news about LA Guns, dropping a new single or working on a new album, because I'm a fan, and they've proven to me that the second wind is for real, and and that's awesome, and I'm happy for them.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I am.
So let's jump from LA Guns. I want to spend some time on your career as a producer, because you've done maybe spend more years doing that than you did as a working musician, or maybe about the same. But you've done some pretty. You've produced albums by some pretty well-known names, and some of them are people I wouldn't even expect to put out albums from.
Right.
Let's talk about, William Shatner and David Hasselhoff. That just trips me out that William Shatner pulls up in your driveway.
I'm out, yo. I gotta go.
I mean, what is it like when Captain Kirk shows up at your house? And I mean, how do you even approach? Because he's not known as being a musician. So how do you take that when somebody approaches you and says, "Hey, William Shatner wants to cut a record"? I mean, do you just go, I want to do this because it's William Shatner, but what the fuck are we possibly going to pull out of this?
Did you record that Rocket Man? Didn't he do Rocket Man?
Well, no, he did. What got him started doing anything musical was back in the 70s. He did Rocket Man, and he was smoking the cigarette, and he was reciting it, and it was hysterical. And it kind of caught on as this little cult video, you know. And years later, he got approached by that singer piano songwriter Ben Folds back in the 90s. And they did an amazing record called Has Been, and it was this really great concept album, and he had Henry Rollins and all sorts of friends of his on it. And they had a little hit on it called Common People. It was a Pulp song sung by the band Pulp, that English alternative band.
Yeah.
And it was really great. And so he hadn't done anything since then. And then I got a call from the label, Brian Pereira at Cleopatra, and he said, I think I have a real fun project that I want to use you on. Would you want to have a meeting with William Shatner? And I was like, of course I want to have a meeting with William Shatner. This sounds fantastic. And we literally sat down in his office and we started chatting, and he goes, I have no idea about music. All I know is I like music, but I'm no musician. So I don't know what to do. And from there, we just started knocking around ideas, and we're like, well, you know, I told him that I had appreciated the record, you know, what he had done musically. And I said, I understand why, you know, a certain group of people thinks it's fantastic, because you're in on the joke. It's funny, but you're in on it. You know, you're laughing with the people. And that's one thing that he's great about, is he's in on the whole joke of the character of William Shatner and the over dramatic, whatever it is that if you like William Shatner, you love about him. And he's just a sweetheart of a guy. You know, he's willing to take chances, and he's willing to laugh at himself, and he's willing to fail. And he just says yes to things. And we just put together a crazy concept record and had the most amazing guests on it. And it ended up, you know, getting a #1 on the Billboard Heatseeker chart. So it seemed to work. Who knew?
Yeah.
We had Peter Frampton on it. We had Sheryl Crow. We had Richie Blackmore. We had Nick from the Strokes. I mean, you just looked at every song and you were like, well, who's who of popular music? It was Bootsy Collins from Parliament and James Brown. Mm-hmm. And that was almost more of a education making that record than it was working with William Shatner. I mean, working with people like of that stature, you really learn, you know, how to work with somebody. And, you know, you're working with people with huge egos and people that are, you know, sometimes they're, you know, just a household name. And, you know, at the core of it, we're all human beings. So we're all just people. And so just treating somebody with the respect that you would of any other person is kind of where you start.
Yeah.
But then again, you know, working with someone like that, he expects a certain level of professionalism, you know, because of his career and where he's at, what he's achieved, and who all he's worked with. So there was a lot of pressure in that. But getting to work with Sheryl Crow and people like that, I learned so much just from an hour-long vocal session with her, because, you know, she's just one of the greatest singers there are. She has perfect pitch, and there's a reason that she's as incredibly successful as she is. She's just, God tapped her on the head and gave her an incredible gift. And I got to have Lyle Lovett in here, and he was another one of those where you're just like, wow, I'm witnessing something great while this person is performing, and it's so obvious. You just get those chills, you know. And you learn so much from those people. You know, you realize that, you know, there's a reason that people with that gift, there's only so many of them around. And as time goes on, you know, we're losing a lot of those people because it doesn't seem to be the craft of making great music and being a great performer doesn't seem to be embraced anymore, because in the digital age in the world of Pro Tools, that's a whole nother conversation.
That's a whole new show.
That's a whole, you know, college course in music business.
Let's elaborate just for a second. Because I don't want to. We could go on for hours. From your chair where you're sitting, and you have Bootsy Collins, you know, in the control room, and he's got a bass on and cables everywhere, and or cutting a vocal with Sheryl Crow, as you said. You know, finding the right suggestion that works for them, as well as taking their the level of comfort that they're suggesting they need, that you need to know how far to reach in, because they're learning about you as well. Tell us, give us a scenario about, from the producer's chair, the engineer producer chair, through the glass, or just like over the shoulder. I imagine Bootsy Collins, you know, star headstock whacking you in the, you know, in the back of the head, or what, you know, I mean, don't shit where you eat kind of thing, because this is sensitive by way of, I love it that William Shatner was able to go, I don't just consider me, the student.
Yeah.
Yep.
He was starting like that. Well, Sheryl Crow's not a student and Bootsy's not a student. So from your eyes, where do you?
Yeah, man, I think that all plays into the psychology of producing a record, and knowing how to read a situation, knowing when you've pushed somebody too far, you have to feel them out, feel those when things get a little uncomfortable, or, like, okay, I can piece together a great take from what we've done. Let's not burn this person out. We want this to be a pleasant experience for them. Music should be. It should be a joyful experience. It can be a lot of hard work, as you know.
Right.
But yeah, every situation is different. Every relationship you have, it is sometimes getting in there with somebody you've never met and trying to feel putting them at the most ease I can possibly put them in. That's what I try to do first and foremost, is like, I want them to walk into a situation and go, oh, this feels comfortable. I'm going to be able to like relax and make great music and do what I do great. And so one of the things I try to do is I try to be as prepared as I possibly can, do all the homework I possibly can, do all the prep work, find out what they're going to need. With Sheryl Crow, her manager was like, you got to go rent her this $10,000 microphone and da-da-da-da-da. So, okay, she's doing this for William Shatner because she's a friend of his. And so she's doing him a favor. She's probably not getting paid. And so I've been like, okay, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to make her feel the most comfortable as possible. And I'm going to have that mic hot and ready to go so she can just walk in, grab a bottle of water, put on the headphones and go. And she came in and was prepared to stay a couple hours, but we literally knocked her part out in like 20 minutes. She's like, that's it. I'm like, that's it. And it's the same with Elliot Easton. When he comes over, we chat for 20 minutes and he plays for 15 and then we're gone. Because now, I do all of that, the work that I need to do to make sure, like, how can I make this easy breezy for this guy? I want him to go, man, this sounds great. That was easy. Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, if we got what we need and this guy's happy, that's great.
I feel like that's how it's supposed to be. Like if it's someone that you met right away or for the first time and there's no way to look them up. Let's say they're a new band or, we don't know each other. Hi, nice to meet you for the first time. Yeah. Okay, now you're all of a sudden you're bleeding into a microphone.
Yep.
You're having to learn about how hard they're hitting.
Absolutely.
Let's try this different microphone, whatever it is. And you have to be careful about that as well.
Absolutely.
You don't know their sensitivities and they may only know this microphone and this sound. So, and they may or may not be willing to try a different microphone.
Oh, you're absolutely right, man. We're
some people are just really, really hard-headed about what the hell is going on with, because what they're hearing back is important to them for them to be able to produce what they need to hear in order to be comfortable.
Absolutely.
Do you feel like you've had to, like, let's say it's that scenario where there's someone brand new, and they've been singing long enough to where they can sing and they're good, but you don't know them, where you're basically one song you're making them sing an hour, 2 hours on one song just to get that magic performance out. Have you been in that situation too?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have. I kind of like to make sure, like I said, I make sure that we're all knowing going into this, that we've all prepared. And then again, sometimes you just have to go guerrilla warfare and do what you got to do to get it. But what I usually do is I like to have them do, like a vocalist. I'll say, let's do 3 takes. And I'll ask them and I'll say, how are you most comfortable? Do you like to sing a whole pass of the song? Or do you like to sing part by part? Or you want me to punch you in as we go? So I kind of like to figure out a little game plan, like what's going to make you the most comfortable. And if you have a mic you love, let's plug it in. Let's use that. And if it's working, great. I mean, Bono, when he goes in the studio, he's at the point in his career when he's like, he walks in with an SM58, a cheap little $100 microphone, a Beta 58 or whatever, because he loves to hold it in his hand and he loves to perform and he doesn't like to be tied down. It sounds to me when I hear records.
I know some people exactly like that.
Yeah, exactly. So you understand, as a producer and an engineer, I would love to say, hey man, I've got a $10,000 German tube mic.
That I'm going to put a pantyhose in front of.
Exactly. There is that. But, and you're going to sound a lot better on it. But am I going to get him to perform the song with heart and soul? And there you go. Like, let's make him comfortable. And if we can find some place where we can meet in the middle and everybody's happy, then there you go. That's a win-win.
Yeah. Well, as artists, I feel like artists need to be prepared to meet, someone who's the knob twiddler, the engineer, the producer, the person who's writing the checks, all of this crew that you are there because of. You're there because of that. They need to be, if they're a new artist, right? Even if they're just doing demos with a name guy, they need to be willing to go to meet halfway.
Absolutely.
Teasin' Pleasin' was recorded with the 58.
There you go.
But I had to fight Max Norman for that.
I'm sure.
Got every microphone in the world set up, and I'm going, man, the demo sounds better than this. And he's like, what the fuck you talking about? And I'm like, dude, listen for yourself. I'll wait. So I used a 58 and it was
there you go.
It was the big hit. So what the fuck?
Yeah. There you go, man.
I wasn't challenging the knowledge of a named producer.
Yep.
I was letting him know I'm going to be more comfortable and you're going to get more out of me in less time if you just let me grab the fucking microphone and eat it.
Yep. Let me be comfortable doing what I do. It's like you're building a house, man, and that tool that you're going to get most work done, the best work done, and be the most comfortable. And it's like, that's what you do, man. But
it's also the learning experience of the artist, just like it is your like how far do you reach in before you piss somebody off?
Yeah.
It's two-way street.
Man.
The fact that you are doing any kind of research and preparedness, it says volumes.
Cool, man. Well, that's the thing, man. It's like when I have somebody come over and visit, a friend of mine, let me find out what their favorite beverage is. Let me find out what they like and what they don't like. Like you, as a producer, you try to be a good host, you try to make that person come.
That's called bait. That's bait.
Yeah, exactly.
You're setting traps.
Yeah, exactly.
They got Big Red and Twizzlers in here.
Exactly, man.
Who told them I was coming?
Big Red, man. Nothing like it.
I love that you're sharing this. I love that you're sharing this because I don't think a lot of people, because it's a very intangible skill. I don't think a lot of people, when they think of a producer, they think of somebody who understands music and gear and getting sounds. But you're bringing in aspects you're part psychologist. I love the fact that you just used the word host and getting to, massaging those personalities and those egos and seeing how far you can push and when you should lay back is a skill that they probably don't teach you in production school.
No, not at all, man. Not at all. And it really isn't. And there's all these videos of people produced like a pro and everything. And it's like, if you're going to produce like a pro and you're going to produce A-list artists and huge people, the gear and the techniques and all that stuff are so less important than it is knowing how to get knowing all the psychology of how to work with this person. And,
I like it
sometimes.
I like it that you are, sorry to interrupt. I like it that you are, close with LA Guns so you can fucking be the drummer on the record, but produce and engineer the record, get the tones and create the record. And I relate it to Jared, our producer of Talk Louder, and within the Broken Teeth camp and the bands that he works with, but more so in Broken Teeth because he's in the fucking band, he's playing on the record, he wrote the fucking songs with you. He's gonna know how far to reach in. Automatic, there's no question. So your relationship with the bands that you're in, that you're also producing, it's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. We were doing the LA Guns record and Tracy would send me a solo and I would say, I know I've got a certain limit with him where I say, hey man, this tone doesn't seem to be work. Try another patch, and he will. But he's also one of those guys where he's like, after a couple of times, we got to get it right. He doesn't have a lot of patience for trying a million things. He's gonna get it right the second time and give me what's gonna fit in that sound of that song. Perfect.
That's common.
So there you go, man.
That seems common to me.
Yeah. So I just know, like, I know how far I can push with him, and that just comes with time and experience, working with him enough, Yeah. But I always say, in the end of the day, it's like when I'm working on helping somebody with their record, it's their record. So in the end, you get the final vote and say, I can put in my 2 cents and tell you what I think, but that's all it is. It's just an opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to touch on 2 other projects that you've worked on, because I don't want to gloss over them. I don't want to not mention them, but I don't want to spend a lot of time, because I want to be respectful of your time with your family and everything on a Friday afternoon. Man. But I have to bring this up because it's another one of these oddball things. So how were you approached about producing a record for David Hasselhoff, which is really, I understand he's a big major star over in Europe, like huge. So I don't know if he sells records or if he's just a well-known TV actor or a movie star or whatever, but he apparently has a huge audience in Europe, and he did quite well in the United States for sure. Don't get me wrong. So talk briefly about how you got that gig and what it was like working with him. And then talk also briefly about, you mentioned at the top of the show, or maybe we weren't even rolling tape yet, but you mentioned you're doing something with Ann-Margret. Yeah. Yeah. So, we're making a record with, we're getting Ann-Margret to make a record. It's going to be like a real cool swinging 60s kind of garage rock sounding record. I mean, she's 80 years old, but she still sings cool. She still sings great. And that's where she comes from, man. The Elvis movies and that whole scene. So it's going to be fun. My favorite movie with her, and this is kind of an oddball, is with Anthony Hopkins, Magic. Oh, Magic. Yes. I used to see that ad when I was a kid with the dummy talking, and and I still get chills thinking about how terrifying that ad was. Freaky. I used to have the Hugo doll. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about? I do. With different mustaches, and it was this plastic hand puppet that was inanimate. You couldn't move the mouth or anything. It was just fucked up. And Magic always I saw that Magic when I was little. Yeah. Fucked with me. That was pre-Exorcist, right? Yep. So it's funny you reference that, because I totally remember that from when I was a kid. And she was great in it. And Anthony Hopkins had hair. Oh, fantastic. So you haven't worked with Ann yet. This is forthcoming, correct? She's coming to do vocals next month here, and I'm doing drums on the songs. My co-producer Jürgen Engler, who lives in Austin, from that we do tons of records together. We usually co-produce the Shatner stuff, but he's producing the Ann-Margret record, but I'm going to play drums on it and produce her vocals here. And we already started. I'm doing one of the tracks now. So yeah, man, I'm very blessed where I wake up every day and I'm like, man, what kind of musical adventure am I going to go on today? Because it usually seems like something completely different in left field, and it's pretty crazy. What's Hasselhoff like to work with? He's amazing, man. He's almost 7 feet tall, so he's already larger than life to begin with. Yeah. He's just a really gregarious, sweetheart, funny guy. He had a career singing in Europe, and he was big over there before he was even an actor here, known for Knight Rider or Baywatch. Oh, that's why he's so successful over there. He had a singing career, so he was a singer before he was an actor. Ah. And so, he hadn't made a record in years, and the label called him and they worked out a deal, and they said they wanted to do something. And he's managed by the same manager that William Shatner was. So I think I got put in through that chain, through that connection for me. You never found out who to send the bottle of wine to? Yeah, exactly. So I just sent him to Brian Pereira at the label, and I say, thanks for keeping me busy, man. Yeah. So it always comes from him. So I also wanted to give a shout out to the Sunbomb record that you just did. Yeah. Thanks, man. That was fun. Sunbomb is Tracy Guns and Michael Sweet from Stryper. And you played drums on that, right? Yeah, I played drums and mixed it. And Johnny Martin plays on a track as well. Yes, he does. Nick Davis plays on most of it, and Johnny plays on a track. That's correct. Yeah. So I've been listening to that record too.
Nice.
Also some good stuff. So yeah, man, I'm just like super proud of everything that you've accomplished.
Man.
It's amazing.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. I feel the same way, man. It's nice seeing us all grow up and have families and doing cool stuff, you know?
Yeah, and still having a toe in the rock and roll waters, you know?
Oh,
it's like
yeah, man.
something where the three of us are obviously never going to outgrow this.
No, you don't outgrow rock and roll when you're a real rock and roller. Absolutely not.
Yeah, yeah. So one last question, and then I'll let Jason have a last stab if he wants, and then I'll let you go. I had to ask you, what got you hooked on rock and roll as a kid? Was it a particular album? Was it a concert? Did you see a performer on television and go, I want to do that? What is it that got you so enthusiastic about music that you not only wanted to be a fan, you wanted to pursue it?
Well, I think it was just in my blood because my cousin on my mom's side of the family is that songwriter Mose Allison from Mississippi. He wrote Young Man's Blues, and you know the Who's covered him, and the Foo Fighters covered him. Wow. Look him up; he's amazing. Wow. Jazz, blues, piano, a white kind of a blues jazz guy. And so I had it in my family and grew up around it. And then when I was a kid, I remember hearing Tina Turner and "Rolling on the River," and man, I just was like, whoa, what is that? And then I discovered Kiss, and it was all over. Yeah. You know,
from Proud Mary to Detroit Rock City.
Yeah, man. And then the older I got, a little older, then I started going back and discovering all AC/DC and Zeppelin and Iron Maiden, and you know. But it all kind of started with that. I remember walking into a record store and Love Gun was playing, and it had just come out. And I remember walked up, and I'm like, what is this? Superheroes that play rock and roll? Yeah. I'm like, I'm in, you know, and that was it. So. Yeah. It kind of all started with that, you know, but at the same time, I loved all my dad's records. I loved the Beatles. I loved the Fleetwood Mac. As a drummer, I loved Buddy Rich. So I would get all that big band stuff. And I still listen to all that stuff today. I listen to so much different stuff that it just make your head spin. But that's the great thing about it. It's like, I feel like music is like, if you're a musician and you make music, if I were a painter, I wouldn't want to paint with one color, man. I'm like, there's a million different color combinations. And I just love that about music is I'm always discovering something new. It's usually older. I'm just kind of digging back, going back. The older I get, the further I go back. Yeah. But man, it's just, you know, it's the breath of life that keeps me alive, you know?
Excellent.
So as a producer, let me ask you one more. I know I was going to let you go here a minute ago, but as a producer, what's your dream gig? What band are you dying to produce?
You know, I don't know, man. I've done so many strange and wonderful gigs and albums and projects with people that I never knew would even be a bucket list thing, you know? I mean, I never really had the desire to write a theme for a WWE wrestler, but I just did. And now that I've got that I wrote a theme for that Trey Baxter guy. It's his new theme. So I'm getting to do all this stuff, and half the things that I've never dreamed about doing, I'm getting to do. And I'm like, well, that's like, I'm kind of living my wildest dreams and getting to do. I pretty much met or worked with everybody I ever dreamed about. And, you know, Led Zeppelin's probably not going to get back together and make another record. So I don't know, man. I appreciate everything I'm getting to do. And, you know, I really don't have any kind of bucket list thing like that, you know?
I'd love to be you're open-minded about yourself and
I mean, ready.
You're ready.
I just love. I think I love a challenge too. The older I get, I love working with somebody that like I'm like, well, I would have never dreamed it would be an amazing experience working with them and getting to work with them and just learning so much and then discovering their whole catalog. You know, like I wasn't a huge Counting Crows fan, but we ended up befriending that band, and they had one of my bands years ago sing on their record, and they played on our record, and now I love them. I think they're one of the great bands, incredible songwriters, and so, you know, just one little thing leads to a whole nother thing, you know?
Yeah. Fun fact, disclaimer, August and Everything After I've got a soft spot for that record.
Oh yeah, man. Just crushing songs, man. Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I have one last thing and we can kind of wrap this up. When Adam writes a song, say for, you know, a rock project or, you know, some kind of easy listening or a country song, or the theme song for a wrestler, it's got to be kind of rowdy and loud and fat and has to come in crushing. Or you see there's these different sort of, you're like standing in the middle and those are the spokes and you have to choose one to get you sort of rolling. Are you inspired just by the obvious things and you just start, let's say you start from nothing, but you're just, okay, I'm going to grab this one and put it in the pot and start, throwing my own ingredients in and see what I come up.
What's really helpful in what I do now is I'm usually given a task, shall we say. Like, for example, if we're going to work on a rock project or something for TV and film, they'll say, here's what we want you to do. We want you to create some tracks that are just heavy and use a 7-string guitar. And, this is what, right. So I'm given that path and I go, okay, that's my road sign that's going to lead me down that. So what I do is
Garrett and I have actually done some shit like that before.
Yeah.
They pretty much paint the picture they want, but for some reason by law, they can't use that picture.
Yeah.
And so you create exactly what they want
So, when you're doing TV and film composing stuff, you're in the service industry. You're trying to give them what they want. And, it can be a lot of different revisions and a lot of different, but, a lot of the things I don't usually it's not like I sit down and say, I'm going to make an Adam record. What am I going to write about? It's like, it's a work project. I have a good idea of where I'm going to go. So I literally will take my iPhone, put on the voice recorder, and then I'll start messing with the acoustic guitar and I'll lay down maybe 5 or 6 ideas and then listen to them tomorrow and say, oh, that one's got some potential. Let me grab my second 7-string guitar and come up with a cool BPM and start writing some riffs. So it usually starts like that. I'm usually kind of given a roadmap and then I just kind of follow that roadmap and see where it leads.
Yeah.
But every project's different. Every situation is different. For like a William Shatner record, if they said, hey, we're going to do an original, and I'll literally just sit down with him and we'll say, hey, what do we want to write about? Let's come up with our concept, or let's come up with an idea first. So we're not just grasping at straws,
No, and that creates an emotion.
Yeah.
Or a color.
Yep.
And you start mixing those together and you start painting that picture with sound.
Yeah. And you know how it is, man. One thing leads to another that leads to another, and all of a sudden the road goes in this direction. And then maybe it turns back, so you just never know. I just say you just have to stay open, man. I say a little prayer before I write and just say, hey, show me what you want me to write, God. And let's see where he ends up. Who knows where it's going to go,
Yeah. I think you're saying a lot of great things about you have to be open and willing to drink the punch that's served.
Yep.
At that moment, so you can, build something from nothing, which is what music is. It's wood and wire until it's not. Yeah,
absolutely, man. I love that Herb Alpert documentary where he says, it's great that you said that because it reminded me, he had some emotional stuff happen in his life and he couldn't play trumpet. Uh-oh. And he just literally lost the ability to play. So they found him this really, really great man who was just like an old wise Yoda jazz guy. And he just held up the trumpet to him and he goes, hey man, this is just a piece of plumbing. You're the instrument, the music comes, this is just a little, like you said, it's just wooden wire, the magic comes through that,
Yeah. I like that hunk of plumbing because a trumpet to me could, you hook that up under the sink and you got a hose that hooks on here and then,
Yep. Yeah, I mean, use it as a plunger. I'm telling you, man. Yeah. But it's so true, though. It's so true. Like, a drum is just a round piece of a tree, with a skin tightened over it. It's like you're really the instrument, and you're absolutely right when you say that,
Yeah, play the song, not the drums.
Yeah, exactly. Man, that's a great thing to end on because that's one of the best production nuggets that you can give to any band is don't play your instrument for you, play for the song. So that's wise, man. good wisdom there.
Yeah.
This has been great, Adam. I want to beat Dave to the punch and say thank you very much.
Oh man, my pleasure. I loved getting to hang with you guys today. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much, man. And I'm just really proud of the career you've built for yourself. And I think you're obviously a skilled dude, but I think one of the reasons that you get so much work is what we just discovered here today. And we've known all along, you're just a chill dude, and you're easy to hang with. And
thanks, man. You guys too.
And, very gracious. And I know that takes you a long way besides just your technical ability. So thanks for staying in touch all these years and continue to be a friend and for joining us today. And
absolutely. Thank you.
Give my best to the LA Guns guys when you talk to them next. I love those guys. I'm a big fan, and I can't wait for that new album to come out and hopefully a tour to follow. So
yeah, man.
Meantime, say hello to your lovely wife and your daughter for me. We'll wrap it up. Ladies and gentlemen, Adam Hamilton, our guest today on the Talk Louder podcast. I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with my co-host Jason McMaster. Thank you again for listening to the Talk Louder podcast.